Good evening, everyone. I hope my audio and my video is being received by all of you. Thank you. I think I have a go ahead from Mr. Behel. Right. So good evening once again, everybody. And for this session, I have chosen a topic which goes like this: Ignite, and how can schools use the multiple intelligences framework in their work. I hope all of you have heard of some visual and spatial understanding, which means they have a very good sense of space, and their ability to draw, their ability to look at the space can be very, very special. You may have seen the natural ability, musical ability, rhythmic ability of a lot of celebrity music composers. They have an extraordinary understanding of the music. The same is the case of the celebrated, athletes. They have physical kinesthetic ability. The ability which Miss P.T. Usha had is not exhibited by many others. And the same is the case of all the athletes. There are individuals who have great interpersonal intelligence, which means they understand other humans very empathetically, very, very nicely. This is their special ability. Intelligences are identified and how they translate into education and professional life. This is the central construct of my conversation with all of you this evening. So therefore, what can schools do? That's the question I've raised here. And I want to understand, I'm looking at the chat box. If there are people from schools, I want to know how you make sense of this statement. How can multiple intelligences framework can help you in your work? So if I put myself in the shoes of a student, there are two questions which come to my mind, which concern me constantly. One is the question of self-discovery. What does it mean? It means that what are my core competencies? I'm good at music. I'm good at sports. This discovery is very, very important. Otherwise, a life where misalignment is present, misalignment between what I'm good at and what I study, misalignment between what I'm good at and what I do as a professional. If there is a misalignment, it could lead to unhappiness in life. It is very, very problematic, and when you see a lot of unhappy people around, you can think of some kind of misalignment in their lives. Therefore, this question, that how do I identify my core competencies? How do I identify what are my intelligences? That's the first question as an educator I think of. The second question is, how do I achieve my target? Because the learning pathways could be very, very starting from the discovery, the learning pathways could be very, very diverse. There could be a pathway wherein you study something else, but nevertheless you go on to study, you go on to work something else. I know a large number of professionals in the government, outside, they do not pursue what they are doing. A lot of film personalities, they studied something else, but they ended up being film personalities. A lot of engineers who study engineer but go on to become good musicians. There are a number of examples around us. How do we understand this? The first is discovery, and the second is How do I map my path? These are two central questions which I concern myself regularly when I think of my students, when I put myself in students' framework. So these are two central questions. Second thing is that I am reminded of a Howard Gardner quote which he gave in his famous book Frames of Mind. I would like to repeat: Frames of Mind, with a subtitle The Theory of Multiple Intelligences. The book came in 1983. And in that book, Mr. Gardner said that kids go to school and college and get through, but they don't seem to really care about using their minds. A school doesn't have the kind of long term positive impact that it should. Sometimes it has, but most often it hasn't got. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, I have prompted all of you to better learners and better learning outcomes. I'm going to utilize my next few minutes in three parts. So, as school people, I understand in amongst the audience you have learners. I understand, and when I'm looking at the chat box, I can see some comments. We often overlook multiple intelligences. Thank you for bringing it to the forefront. Thank you, Ms. Tamta. How can we identify multiple intelligences in a child? Is a question is being posed by Ms. Tamta. Let me try to how you can use it. Let me try to put some executable framework to it to all of you. So, when it comes to MI framework being applied at the learner level, let me try to give you that how verbal linguistic intelligence can be identified and can be nurtured. So when you're nurturing this particular intelligence, you need to understand that negotiating means through language skills. When you how well they are negotiating, how well they are using the linguistic skills, and that is when you will see that through a negotiating condition being imposed on two or more learners, you will know that how well a linguistic skill is coming out. That is the test of identifying that. Similarly, when it comes to logical or mathematical intelligence, you can examine how well the time management skills are of a learner. How well is critical thinking? Whether something is given to you, whether you accept it as it is, or you challenge the premise and try to figure out a new premise or try to modify the premise, expand the premise, will indicate to you the logical or mathematical intelligence of a person. Similarly, people who have visual special intelligence will show you imaginative, deployment of learning strategies on task. Particularly in the schools, students are in a given class, and how you utilize the same space, how you encourage the student to utilize the same space. You will always find some students who can figure out a more creative ways of utilizing the same space. You can know that time that this person has got visual spatial intelligence. Then you have physical kinesthetics, that physical ability at the playground. You will be able to eminently see that somebody is good at football, volleyball, cricket, whatever sports, that will be most visible. Similarly, the musical rhythmic intelligence will be at work, and you can see that in terms of skills to play a particular musical instrument will be visible and will tell you what is the musical rhythmic intelligence a person may have. The same is the case of interpersonal intelligence, where ability to work in a team, how you handle differences, how you handle conflict, will tell you the interpersonal intelligence. If a person is bogged down, is depressed easily with a conflict, you can be sure that the person is requiring certain improvement in the interpersonal intelligence. The discovery of intrapersonal intelligence the guidance from transition from guided to autonomous, reasonably say that the inward journey of the person has yet not started. The person is still looking at the surroundings, looking at parents, looking at teachers all the time, to be guided, to be motivated, to figure out the riyaz of ditya, to figure out why he or she should be doing a particular activity. If the person shows autonomous abilities, autonomous learning abilities, you can see that this particular intelligence is working, and the learner is exhibiting some signs of intrapersonal intelligence. And the last being the naturalistic intelligence, awareness of the environmental issues, awareness about the insect behavior, animal behavior, behavior of others, behavior of plants, flowers. Children will tell you how they are observing, how minutely they are observing, and that will tell you how this manifests into this particular intelligence. So that's a very quick introduction to how MI can be spotted, identified, and nurtured in a learner. So that's the first part. A second part you need to understand is how the multiple intelligence can interface with the teacher, because that's the second important link of the learning process. So first being learner, I've explained to you. The second being the teacher. At the teacher level, you need to understand that the verbal linguistic intelligence has to travel from explaining to eliciting. The teacher has to watch out oneself that I am explaining more or I am eliciting more. It's a question of encouraging others to come out rather than you giving all the explanations. So that is where this transition has to take place in order for a teacher to effectively use multiple intelligence in cognitive development of children. The second is logical intelligence. Again, you can see in teachers, time management and task structuring abilities differ. Schools organize, let us take an example of an event. An event is being organized. Some teachers can do it well, while others may be struggling. So you can figure out how a big task is split into several smaller tasks and how they manage the time, how they manage the resources, can tell you a lot about the logical intelligence of a teacher. Similarly, visual spatial intelligence, optimal use of the classroom. I'm again coming back to the same example where the special intelligence can mean that the furniture layout of the class or of any other space of the school can tell you what is the visual spatial intelligence of a teacher and how he or she can inculcate the similar intelligence in the learners. Physical kinesthetics, again managing the student movement, monitoring symptoms, can tell you a lot about physical kinesthetic level of intelligence. The sense of timing and periodic rhythm will tell you whether a teacher has the musical rhythmic intelligence. It's all about rhythmic. It's all about having the ability to structure a task in a rhythmic manner and being more effective and being more efficient. The group composition, role allotment, multiple group interactions. If you look at how people conduct themselves, how teachers conduct themselves, you will know the interpersonal level of intelligence teachers have. The when a teacher becomes instead of a teacher a participating learner is the indication of intrapersonal intelligence, where a person's awareness of the self, awareness of one's own core competence makes one a good listener. I would like to greatly emphasize on being a good listener, because listening is one such ability which conveys a lot about teachers or about any other person. A good listener essentially has a great ability to not only receive but also reflect and act. So, therefore, listening has a disproportionate amount of attention from my side, and I would like likewise to all of you to place attention on this. The existential intelligence could be, indicated in teachers by virtue of their behavior of self and other roles. How they place themselves and how they place others could indicate that how they look at the existentialist questions about themselves and about others. The last part of my talk today is the principal, because a principal is the leader of the entire school ecosystem. And a school ecosystem essentially has, students, all the teachers, counselors, administrative staff, and at the top of it, the coordinating force or the motivating force is the principal. So that also has to be touched upon. If you look at multiple intelligences application, how they manifest in the role of a principal, you need to look at how a person is, migrating from troubleshooting to delegating. How much of delegation takes place is very critical to be looked at in order to judge how much ahead you plan, how well you plan, how well your resource allocation takes place. All of this will tell you the logical intelligence in a principle. Optimization of a campus. If you look at various campuses, you will see sometimes, particularly in bigger cities, in cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, you will see that the land may not be so plentifully available. So, therefore, optimization of the campus will greatly indicate to you the visual special intelligence of a leader. The handling of oneself, one's staff, one's students, your students health program, all of them will tell you that how physical or kinesthetic intelligence is being manifested in the thought process of a principal. The musical rhythmic intelligence will be indicated by the cultural life of the school. I've been to schools where a great deal of art flourishes, is nurtured. All forms of art, rather, from painting to dance to singing to variety of instruments. Or there is a very healthy art life. You can immediately understand how musical intelligence, how rich is the musical intelligence in a principle. Similarly, when you talk of the interpersonal intelligence in a principle, the teamwork, how engaged the team is, how engaged are the parents, how intensely motivated are the staff members of a school, will tell you the interpersonal intelligence of a leader, of a principal. Transitioning, about the intrapersonal, there are two terms I am constantly using. Interpersonal has to be looked at from how you transition from somebody who uses his de jure authority, the authority of a principal, to a motivator, to a self motivator, as a motivator to others, as somebody who is seeking knowledge, who is seeking self discovery in order to help others. That is what is mark of the intrapersonal intelligence in a principle. The vision, the direction, the purpose, how well these are articulated in a school by the principal will tell you the existentialist intelligence in a principal. What I mean to say is that the multiple intelligence framework has to be understood and applied at three different levels. It cannot be done. It cannot be done at just one level. This is something we have to understand very, very clearly. And the last, make use of this entire thing. As a university, we want to facilitate self-discovery, and therefore our L0, our courses are divided at three levels: L0, L1, and L2. Three levels. L0 are the courses which our student take in the first year. These are all discovery courses, which means you take these courses only to discover yourself, what your multiple intelligences are. There are 8 baskets of courses. You choose them, and then you study those courses and you discover your core competences. Having done that, you go on to make choices. You decide your majors and minor, acquire all the relevant professional knowledge, skills, and attitude by virtue of your choice of majors and minor. That those are courses at L1 and L2 level. Then there are certain practice courses such as social immersion, such as industry internship, such as personality enhancement. These are all credit bound efforts. These are all activities which a student does all through the duration of a degree program, and gives you a structured introduction of the multiple intelligences. I would like to quick take a look at the comments which are coming here. So there's a comment here: there are crucial aspects of schooling. Identifying the MI of a child must be focused and emphasized upon the school. I very much agree with you, sir, that unless the framework is agnostic to all the intelligences, unless in your mind a musical ability and a ability to write well are equal, you will not develop, you will not allow development of all the multiple intelligences equally. So therefore it's very important that the leaders, the teachers, they allow a level playing field between all the multiple intelligences. Mr. Chandra, I must also tell you, Mr. Animesh Chandra is the one who is making this comment. I must tell you that multiple intelligence is is a process, is a journey. It's not really an end result. I must tell you this. It is not a destination. It is a journey. You are there as part of a journey. You explore yourself, or you allow others to explore themselves, and this is the way you find happiness, you find professional competence, you find you help others find their core competences. So therefore, please make a differentiation between MI being a journey vis-a-vis a destination. There's a comment from Mr. Bell. In our university, there are two touchstones, fundamental touchstones our courses are informed by. The first touchstone is the Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory, which allows the L0 courses I explained to you are the courses which allow you to self-discover. The second is the level at which we have something called ideas framework, wherein I stands for innovation, D stands for design thinking, entrepreneurial spirit, automation, and solutioning. So therefore, in every single class, we allow students to look at the new ways to solve a particular problem, new ways to solution a particular problem. So those, not only in the classroom, but our learning is centered around immersion. What does it mean? It means that through immersion, through putting students to do, not just to listen. When they do, they discover and they figure out new ways to do. That is how we facilitate innovation and creativity in everything we do. There is a comment that resource and logistic management, some ideas how we can optimize. I think that Mr. Kumar, your comment is very apt. That this ability of then there's a question: how do you measure academic progress? What are the strength and weakness of that approach? I think I've answered that question in great detail, Mr. Behel. That academic progress is not about getting the marks. It's about discovering one's intelligences and progressing where your intelligence lies, where your core competence lies. It's not about I'm good at music, whereas I'm put to mathematical ability and I'm forced to study mathematics because this is very important. That kind of misalignment, I cannot say academic progress. Academic progress is about progressing where your core strength is and developing with the areas which are not your core strength. That's how I look at the academic progress. Then there is a question by Mr. Lodi: how to deal with different intelligence of different students along with syllabus completion? A very, very practical question by Rana Lodi. See, the syllabus completion, I understand, is an important landmark in a teacher's life. It is the how you conduct every class will give you newer ways to discover and nurture intelligences. It is not about that the target of syllabus completion is not anti to the discovery of self. No, it is not that way. It is how you structure. Let's say if you're teaching geography, if you're teaching geography, the self discovery could be that how people in hilly areas, people in desert, people in extreme winters, how they survive. You can give people a task, and that engagement will reveal the different sides of thought process, different sides of responses, and that is where the self discovery will take place. I hope this example helps you, and I hope I have covered all the questions. I'm just looking at. So that's about me. If there are any more questions, you can feel. Otherwise, you can feed in the chat box. Otherwise, we will have to uh, close this session now. Thank you very much. It's a great opportunity. Thank you, Entab. Thank you, Nimisha. Thank you, Raji, for this opportunity. I greatly appreciate your invitation. I hope the participants today have got something useful, and they're going back with some executable knowledge, which I promised at the beginning of the session. Thank you, everybody.